You are looking at some of the most important things that I think a beekeeper can have in their bee yard. Why do I say that? Stick around for the rest of this video and I'll explain why. What is going on, fellow beekeepers? It is still cold, it is still rainy, but I think we have some warm weather coming up. So what is one of the most important things that you should have in your bee yard? We all know that you need to have a hive body. We all know you need to get your bees and have all the equipment and hive tool and smoker, as I talked about on the last video. Had someone come and approach me a couple days ago, I guess it was now, and ask me, what is one of the most important things that I can have being a beekeeper? Well, I showed you in that intro photograph pictures of my nucleus colonies. I personally feel that one of the most important things a beekeeper can have and should have in their bee yard is an extra nucleus colony. Why do I say that? Well, there's different things, and we'll discuss them probably someday through some of these videos. Obviously, we can't always show every possibility and every possible outcome of different colonies for you, but it's really important to have a nuke colony. It can be used for resources in case something does go wrong within your main colony. I have a lot of people come to me and say, well, I want to get into bees. I just want to have one hive. Well, it's usually suggested that you have two, but if you are going to just have one hive, you should make it to be one full 10 frame hive, say, and then also have a nucleus colony. I'll explain what happened to me about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, before we had this really cold snap come through. And it was when I was checking queens, and as you saw, there's videos uploaded on that, checking for your queens, and I came across a colony. It was full of bees, but I pulled the frames, and I had this. I don't know if you guys can see what might be wrong with that frame. Trying to get a good shot in the camera here, as close as possible. You see that pupa? It's not flat like most of it should be, or most of the times I've showed you hives. That's bulged. As you can see, it's sort of a ridge to that. Well, what had happened is the hive late in the winter apparently went queenless, and when a hive goes queenless, they'll not have the pheromone from the worker brood, and you don't have the queen pheromone. So guess what happens? The workers develop their ovaries and they begin to lay eggs. Just your regular worker bees, your field force, your nurse bees. We all know that in a hive there's only one bee that can really lay the eggs. That's the queen. And we know why she's the only one that can do that is because she's been mated. She's mated with drones, and she can lay either, and at her discretion, she can lay worker brood, and she can also lay drone brood. Well, when you get a laying worker colony, what happens is, again, like I said, the ovaries develop in the worker bees, and you have worker bees laying eggs. Well, the only problem with that is the laying worker hasn't been mated, so she's going to lay unfertilized eggs, which in turn are drone eggs. So where does this all fit in with this subject of this video, the importance of a nucleus colony or a nuke hive? Well, to correct that problem, one would think that should be easy to correct. I'll go buy another queen, right? Well, the problem is with a laying worker colony, the worker bees think they are a queen right now because they have these worker bees laying eggs, so they typically won't accept a new queen. If you would try to introduce a queen to them and it gets released, more than likely they would kill it. So that option doesn't work. Well, it's going to eventually collapse the colony. I mean, you end up getting a complete mess. There was probably 5 or 6 frames that looked like what I just showed you. It was a pretty sad sight. However, there was still a lot of bees in the colony. I thought, well, I hate to lose all those bees. And there's a method that I use, and I'm going to save that for another video topic, which will be completely correcting a laying worker colony. But to keep on the subject of this video, what we did was we had a 5-frame nuke colony. I had an extra 5-frame nuke, and what I was able to do was pull that colony and merge it, because it did indeed have a queen. It was queen right, so I was able to merge it with the queenless colony that was as a laying worker colony. So really, when you have one of these nuke colonies, what's nice about it is sometimes you need to pull a frame of brood, or maybe you know that you was working your hive and you accidentally crushed or squished the queen, and you think, oh my goodness, where am I going to get a queen this quick? It might be in the fall time of the year, and when it's in the fall time of the year, or the winter, or even early spring, as mine was, you're not likely going to get a mated queen really easily. I don't know, you might be able to send away for them, and then you take the risk of having it mailed here and just one queen, and the shipping's overnight shipping. It's like basically the price of the queen to get it shipped to your door. So if you have a nuke colony, well, you're able to fix all those issues that can come up from that. And they're simple, and they don't need to be complicated, and you don't need to go spend a bunch of money. If you have a table saw and are a little bit handy, I mean, you can build them. They're simple. This is a commercial nuke colony that I have here, and then I just put a sheet of plywood on the bottom, as you can see there, to have a bottom board. I don't even buy a specific bottom board on it. And then on the fronts, you can drill a hole, and then they make little doors that you can put on these, and you know, that becomes really handy. And then just a simple lid. This is just a simple flat migratory lid with a hole drilled in the middle of it that I can use for jar feeding if I need to feed the colony. There's endless possibilities, really, as to having a nuke colony on hand. As I said, especially when things aren't going well, maybe the strength of one of your 10-frame hives, and you can winter these. The picture I showed you at the beginning, those are all are some of my wintered Nucleus colonies. If you play your cards right and feed them, and you do have to check them a little more often for feed during the winter, because there's not 10 frames, there's not 20 frames, depending on if you run a single or double deep. There's not that many frames for all the food storage they need, especially in this area here in Pennsylvania. So you can put candy on them through the winter and have no real issues getting them through the winter. I have a couple of mine that are kind of small, but that's fine. They'll be bursting at the seams, you know, come here in another week or so, I would say. But they're really important to have in your yard. And I know a lot of people approach beekeeping as, I just want this one little hive in a special place in my yard and in your backyard, whatever the case is, and that's fine. But I would strongly encourage you, even if you don't put bees in it right away, I would strongly encourage you to invest in a nuke box. Even if you want to build one, you could build one out of scrap plywood, but if not, your major catalogs, they all sell them. You'll probably have $50 in one, maybe a little more to get it shipped to you. I don't know what the costs are anymore. It just keep going up and up. But in any case, what happens if your main colony swarms? What would happen in that case? Well, you have a nuke box, shake the swarm into the nuke box, now you got two hives. What happens if you maybe need to borrow a couple frames of brood from a friend or an experienced beekeeper, and you call them up and say, hey, can I buy a couple frames of brood from you? What are you going to transport them in? Well, if you have a nuke box, you transport them in your nuke box. They're really handy to have. And like I said, when it's difficult to find queens, you always know you'll have an extra queen, because anyone that's been in beekeeping for any length of time, you know that there's accidents that happen. Like I said, you can smash a queen, roll a queen, whatever the case. It happens to us all, even the experienced. And you know, what do you do in that case? Well, you can go to your nuke box, and if you pull the queen out, and there's plenty of eggs and larvae at the right stage, why, that nuke box will raise another queen, and and you'll have another one in the future. So it's a really good tool for the beekeeper. It's only 5 frames typically. I have some that I built to be 4 frames. I have a couple 3 frames and a couple 2 framers, which 2 frames are more for queen mating. But really handy to have. And like I said, if your colony would happen to swarm on you, maybe your friend would call you because they know you have bees and say, hey, I got this swarm of bees hanging in my tree. Do you know anyone who could help me? Well, sure. Yeah, I can take care of that. Go over with your nuke box. You got free bees. So when it comes to beekeeping, one of the hardest parts sometimes is thinking ahead through your beekeeping year on the products you need. And we'll go into more discussion on different subjects in upcoming videos. It's just like mite treatments. It's just like having frames, additional frames or additional supers or additional boxes. What you don't want to do as a beekeeper is wait until you need them, because when you need them, you know how Murphy's Law works. It's going to be out of stock. You're going to call your favorite catalog supplier or Amazon or wherever you might want to buy your products, and you want to click the order button and not in stock. So I think of a nuke box as sort of the part of the planning of a beekeeper. Have that handy. And like I said, really try to even make a split off your main hive. If you need to make a split, make it into a 5-frame nuke box. And they're really versatile, and if you really want to up your annex on probably wintering success, put another, buy an extra box and make it a double deep nuke colony, which some of mine are. I sort of did a few as experiments this winter, and so far so good with them. But it's just something that you really should have in your arsenal as a beekeeper. And when you need it, it's there, whether it's with bees or without. I would say a person maybe would even like to have a couple of them, but without going too extreme. But like I said, you find yourself in a situation where you got a laying worker. For one good example, I was super happy I had one there. It was handy, and I wanted to get that on video, but that ended up being a long, drawn-out process. It literally was the last hive I looked at that day, and it was almost getting to dark, and I found that out. I just didn't have a chance to get the GoPro out. I really would have liked to have, just to show how I have found success in solving a laying worker colony. Because once they get into that situation, if you don't have an extra nuke that has some bees in it, or a couple frames of brood, you're really in trouble unless you're just going to combine it. But if you only have one hive, you're really in for a situation on your hands. So that's one reason I like to keep them around. Man, if you get enough of them through a winter, you could always sell it as an overwintered nucleus colony. Check with your state and what requirements would be that you'd have to go through to sell bees. I won't get into all that, but check into those things. So just a tip this evening. Was unable to still get into the bee yard. I know the videos of me working the hives typically has the most views, and I know they're probably the most enjoyable than sitting here looking at my ugly face on a camera. But just wanted to give that tip this evening, and before it got dark, I try to release 2 videos per week. I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button. I really hope these videos are helping some people with questions, and if you have questions, leave a comment. We have an email address. We have a Facebook page, Brad's Backyard Bees. If you type that in there, you'll see us. Add us on there. Email us with questions. I'd love to have questions to ask that I could, go into to narrow down what I could do videos on. So appreciate you taking the time watching this evening. Hope this helps somebody out there. Have a good night.